I love Yandere ASMR. And my friends think that's weird. I get asked why I like it, which made even me wonder. So I went searching. From anime tropes to research papers to a retrospective of myself and the emotional vulnerability of men. It sounds like a rabbit hole, so bear with me, because it all starts here. The word trope is defined by recurrence. In every sense of the word that can be used, it has something to do with patterns. In creative writing, tropes are probably the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. My practical interpretation of what tropes have become are a lot like traps that writers fall into when they don't actually know how writing a character arc works. Of course, it can be done well. My personal favorite tropes include autistic characters and their enabler, but of course, the quality of something isn't dictated by my personal opinion. And like with any form of art, 80% of the applications for tropes in creative writing are either mid, trash, or promote a social stigma somehow. This is where anime comes in, the rise of the deres, sparking one of the goofiest widespread tropes in media. Although mostly appearing in romance and shonen, these dere tropes are mostly associated with writers who use it as a scapegoat solution to write surface-level characters. See, what changed these tropes to the dimension of anime is the fact that they don't actually fucking exist. Like, ever seen those dudes in comment sections saying, "Oh man, why can't I have a tsundere girlfriend like that?" Yeah, I wonder why you don't. Surprisingly, real women actually have traits not constrained to anime tropes and are frankly significantly more interesting than the idealized media perception of them. I could go on about that for a whole video, so let's check that one out later. Anyways, that isn't the point of this video. I wanted to talk about the tropes themselves and why people find yanderes attractive. It's just nice to have someone interested in me. I genuinely feel this way. Is my life over, bros? I wish someone would love me. It would me hurt less getting stabbed than getting cut. What the fuck? The word yandere is a play on the word lovesick, which is a word that perfectly describes the characters that the trope encompasses. It is commonly depicted as someone who is so emotionally immature that they turn to drastic measures to express or secure their love for another character, leading to the common ideas of characters committing murders, kidnapping people, and sometimes even bending the fabric of space. Twice. You may have noticed in my explanation that there are no good traits surrounding these characters, making it all the more curious that people like them at all. The weakest argument for this phenomena is the physical attractiveness of the suspect, which I think is the part of the spectrum where you can still be considered normal. Cute and are a normal human occurrence, and honestly, I'd let a cute girl do anything to me too. But it also doesn't explain the hype behind the audios. Not much visual there at all. One layer down, and people might say that they want to be desired to a point of abusive obsession. This is a very problematic thing to say. It's important to mention that abuse isn't just the act of hitting or berating your partner. What sets abuse apart is the mental chokehold that a person holds above you through different manipulations like threats, lies, or physical interventions. You will genuinely believe that what is happening is for your own good and that you don't have to leave. This is not a good thing for anyone. Honestly, if you find this attractive, please talk to someone who can help. There's evidence that people who have unknowingly experienced abuse are more likely to be victims of it. So consider looking into yourself for any unresolved trauma, because it really might save your life one day. Though the common hypothesis for the attraction to yanderes is the idea of being desired or the unyielding commitment. That if your GF is a yandere, then she is so into you that she will never think of going for anyone else. Oh my god. Okay, first of all, dude. Second, all the reasons and causes for infidelity in long-term relationships have nothing to do with how much you love someone. I mean, think about it. If there really is nothing good about you, can't your hypothetical yandere girlfriend just decide to be obsessed with someone else? This, once again, is a call for introspection. Why do you think this way? And maybe what can you do to be better? Through all of this, I want to propose an idea. I brought up a conversation not just about the tropes, but specifically about anime ASMR, which is a medium that is a lot more constrained and limited. Most creators in this field can only really express their creativity through the script and the voice acting. And yet, it remains attractive. Here's why I think that's the case. A moment that stands out to me in Ryo Minenami's boy's Abyss is when two characters set out to drown in a river together, they get to the topic of why. The protagonist smiles, then laughs, as his feelings begin to pour out. But take a closer look at this 2-page spread for a moment, and you'll realize that there isn't actually any sign of inherent mental illness. This is consistent, at least in the first part of the story, and that is the case for most people. You don't need a mental illness to feel down, overwhelmed, or give up. Many people just struggle with low points, or creative circumstances, or feelings, or things they need to get off their chest, but can't. What happens to you as you developed almost entirely outlines the painting of you as an adult. That outline could have been littered with moments, lectures, or influences that enforce the idea that emotionality is transgression, before you even truly understood what that meant. Studies show that there isn't a difference in the emotional vulnerability of men and women. That is to say, there's no difference in the ability to be emotional, because the real difference actually lies in when, where, and how males are allowed to be emotional. Once you grow up in that environment, it becomes difficult to deviate. It becomes a part of you. As a kid, I would have to learn to face scrutiny over crying. My dad would literally ask me, "Are you becoming gay?" when I was speaking a little too emotional. Luckily, I have matured enough to understand that crying is not an automatic response for gay men to attract other gay men. Trust me, I know how. It appears that for some people, these spaces are literally the only place they are allowed to be vulnerable. Maybe because no one is there to deny them of it, or because the characters involved are eliciting that response.
Sweetheart, what's wrong?
Maybe both. I mean, the comments. But that avenue doesn't particularly solve the problem itself. It stays as it is, an avenue. Growing out of these habits is a difficult process, though continuing to live your life with it is arguably even worse. Slowly, you run out of people who care for you, and lacking that care is detrimental. The best answer goes out to the people who are yet to be parents. Do your homework. There's a lot to learn in raising a whole-ass person. But to those who are in the same position as my homies, you have a long road ahead. But it will be worth it. I, however, am a channel about creative writing, so I want to talk to the writers in chat. Themes in creative writing are the messages and values that you promote in the literature that you create. It is arguably the single most important thing that writers do not give a shit about, which is kind of wild considering how literature now can easily blow up with the right amount of marketing to audiences who will base their entire personality off of particular characters. Media and entertainment affect society. It is a mirror. It takes the writer's beliefs, ideas, and flaws and reflects it onto their audience. But if it's the right amount of convincing, they might just believe you. Remember when movies actually enforced the idea of the stoic, brash, and strong masculine man? Or when 13 Reasons Why may have caused an increase in summer-side rates?
It gives people the idea that they have some control over the situation after they choose to kill themselves.
Or when The Fault in Our Stars had people saying, "I wish I had cancer." It may be easy to conclude that the media itself is the problem. Though isn't it more accurate to point out that these authors just aren't that good at writing themes? But of course, just pointing it out isn't all that helpful. So, how do you responsibly handle the themes in your story? Research. It's actually that simple. It is at that point in the process of conceptualizing ideas where we all go through that light bulb moment, where we think of a brilliant topic, character idea, or even just a moment. That's where you have to stop and think, in what way can your idea influence the world that it touches? Temper creativity with objective reality. That is not to say that you should restrict your creative world to what's real, because that defeats the entire purpose. What makes the difference is if you are capable of assigning narrative complexity and relevance to the traits of a real-life topic. Seek a good understanding of the technical facets of your topics instead of relying on surface-level implicit knowledge. Not just because it makes your story meaningful and sound, but because you might just be the next big influence. We have an established scientific method to understand the things around us. That is research. Luckily, you don't have to do that part. You just have to read. Wait, what the fuck does this have to do with Yandere ASMR? The shallow nature of tropey characters kind of makes you wonder what it is about them that attracts certain people. But maybe one only needs to look a little deeper as to how these tropes function at their core. Loneliness is a public health concern that has only been made worse by the global pandemic. It can affect anyone and can yield damaging effects. We joke, but this is a real issue. And I think that loneliness is at least in part connected to a person's emotional availability. The meaningful moments you have with other people are important steps to establishing meaningful connections. Unfortunately, that requires muscles you may have never stretched out when you were younger. Or rather, you were not allowed to. Loneliness may be a fleeting moment for some, or a persistent experience for others. Some can escape, and some suffer for long periods of time. But what is most unfortunate about things like loneliness and depression is that most of the actions to change things for the better are conscious decisions. To get out of bed, to take care of yourself, to get help, or even just to reach out to a friend despite what you expect them to think about you. They are difficult decisions. Literature may have made these decisions harder than they have to be, because if the characters and stories I consume celebrate the quiet, unemotional, or stoic, then maybe I should do that too. If mental illness is only worn by evil, then I should never harbor such a flaw. Or if being nonchalant and impartial is cool and attractive, I mean, I'd like to be attractive myself. But writers forget that meaningful relationships are built off of meaningful moments you spent with someone, that mental illness isn't a character flaw. It's a fucking illness. That strength is one's capacity to withstand great force. What makes you strong isn't your tendency to push aside your problems to wear a straight face. It's the ability to look at that hardship and tackle it. And most importantly, writers forget that their stories have the power to change someone's outlook on the world, and that they need to take care of that power. People find their vulnerable space through these videos and the characters within them. Or alternatively, as my friend put it,
Maybe you just like the idea of someone taking over your life so you don't have to worry about anything.
to which I responded by hitting the pondering pose for 10 whole minutes. Regardless, this is not a good state of mind to be in. If you regularly indulge in these topics, consider looking into yourself, because there might just be a good reason that you're part of the target demographic. It's important to ask because it really won't be the same for everyone, so it will not be me who gives you the answer. Rather, I'm urging you to ask the question. If you know someone who is into these videos, by all means, make fun of them. But of course, when the dust settles, take the time to ask, hey buddy, what's going on? In conclusion, I am not weird for liking Yandere ASMR.
Nah, you're fucking weird.
They're weird.
Okay, side note. The people who write the scripts for these ASMR videos may actually be capable of applying narratives that incentivize the audience to reach out or seek self-improvement. It might run counter to the idea of a Yandere character, but I think it's a really funny way of helping people out. You don't just slowly inject healthy messages into your content to slowly mend the gaps. By the way, if you're curious about the one trick that makes a well-written female character, click on this video to find out.